All right, joining us today on Pirate Radio Live on our advanced moving and storage opponent preview, the play-by-play voice of the Appalachian State Mountaineers, Adam Witten, joining us. Adam, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, looking forward to a big one coming up this Saturday, East Carolina and Appalachian State. Anticipating a big crowd, a lot of purple, obviously, but I think some black and gold will be there as well. A lot of folks from Boone and around the state coming here supporting App State on Saturday, Adam.
Yeah, we're expecting it. It's been a while since our program has been to Greenville. They know how much this game means. I mean, like ECU, App's a program that travels really well. We had about 5,000 people at the Clemson game last Saturday, but I don't know what the number will be just yet for Greenville, but we certainly hope however many people are in attendance, it goes a little bit better than it did at Clemson.
Yeah, Adam, that Clemson game did not go the way we thought from the outside. I got to imagine folks on your end as well thought that would be much more competitive, and just kind of looking from afar, looked like it got out of hand pretty early, right?
Yeah, it did. I mean, 35-0 at the end of the first quarter. So it got out of hand in a big way. It's not something that we're used to. It hasn't really happened that often in the history of our program. But yeah, Clemson came in with a lot to prove. Not only that they were better than the team that showed up against Georgia and Atlanta in week one, but that they also had a quarterback that was pretty good too. There were a lot of people that were down on Cade Klubnik, and I think they were very intentional about saying, okay, well let's show you guys what our quarterback can do. But App's defense just had a really hard time against the deep passing game, and once they started stretching the field. I mean, you watch enough football, you know that if you can stretch the field vertically like Clemson did, it opens up so much more. And then as the game wore on, they just started picking apart the middle of the field. They could pretty much throw the ball almost anywhere they wanted to once they were starting to get burned on those deep post routes. So, yeah, just all around a really difficult night, especially for the defense on Saturday.
Adam Witten joining us. A lot of different ways to look at this game. We can talk about the what have you done for me lately? East Carolina 2-0, but no trips to Death Valley, and that 2-0 for ECU did pick up a road win against ODU. And you can also look at the two previous meetings where App State has really bullied East Carolina. So I guess we'll go with those two, Adam. How about the previous two meetings? East Carolina has seemed to be outmanned in those games in the trenches, and that is concerning. We got a very veteran, both D line and O line. The D line, the strength of this East Carolina team. So, from a Pirates perspective, hopefully they can look a lot better in the trenches. But how about what do you kind of take away from the last two meetings of this series, and will that have anything to do with this Saturday?
Yeah, I mean it's hard to bring the 2021 game into the equation because these teams are so much different from 2021. But going off of last year's game, turnovers played a huge part in
Yeah.
that game, and ECU fans know how turnovers have been a story for that team in the first two games, even though they've been able to win the first two games. But App had three interceptions last year. ECU had two defensive touchdowns in that game. I don't know that App would necessarily dominate the line of scrimmage, especially against ECU's defense. ECU's had a really good defense last year, and they still do this year. Like, it's going to be tough up front against this team. And App has run the ball fairly inconsistently through the first couple of games, but the good thing is that the offensive line play, believe it or not, because of the final score, was actually kind of a bright spot in the way they played against Clemson. They protected Joey Aguilar pretty well. They started running the ball pretty well as the game went along. You don't get to run the ball as much as you want when you're down 35-0 at the end of one, but offensive line actually did okay. So, if the offensive line can play and especially pass protect the way that they have during the first two games, then App State's offense has a chance to do some good things. But yeah, their defense is going to be tested up front because they could not get any pressure against Cade Klubnik, and that's why they got beat on so many explosive plays. And so, Jake Garcia has been prone to throw interceptions so far, and but if you let him sit back there with a clean pocket, that the chances of him turning the ball over goes way down. So I think that's what I learned from last year's game is that turnovers play a big factor in a game like this. and App's still looking for its first defensive takeaway of the season. So I don't anticipate this game being much different in that turnovers could play a big role in it.
Yeah, we went into the ODU game and on our pregame show talking about turnovers were going to be the key today. And then we went out and threw 4 interceptions and won. So right now, I'm kind of hoping ECU does turn it over 4 or 5 times. That usually leads to victories. It's been a wacky start to the season from that regard. Adam, how about a couple of names and numbers to keep an eye on the offensive side? Who are the playmakers that Pirate fans need to kind of put a check beside going into the game?
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of guys that they recall from last year, particularly the quarterback and Joey Aguilar. He had a really good game. He threw one really bad pick six in that game, but
Yeah.
outside of that, he was still pretty good against the Pirates. So he's back at quarterback. The guy I think at running back to watch out for is probably the guy who played the best in what was a very tough night at Clemson, and that's number 1, Anderson Castle. He came into the season at the number 2 running back, but he's been running the ball as good as anybody on that team. And he could see a lot more carries in a game like this because Castle is a very hard runner, and he's very difficult to bring down on first contact. And so I would keep an eye out for him. And then App's top 3 receivers are extremely talented and very veteran. Christian Horn and Caden Robinson are now coming in as third-year starters. Christian Horn's a 2-time captain. And Mekhi Jackson, number 15, the wide receiver, has really come on because those other 2 guys get so much attention. Mekhi Jackson has become a playmaker for this team through the first couple of games. So those are a few names and numbers to be looking at when Saturday rolls around for the offense.
Adam Witten joining us. Adam, I made a statement that for the first time maybe in my life, I was looking forward to the college football season more than the NFL season. Part of that is being a Commanders fan and just knowing we're not going to be good, although I'm excited about Jaden Daniels. But it had to do with, heck, the video game coming out, and I'm playing video games like I'm a young guy, a kid again. It had to do with all the talk we've done leading up to the season, but I think the big thing probably is the playoff and the expanded playoff, and it makes games like ECU App State even more important. You've got the state rivalry part of it. You've got, hey, we want to win and go to a bowl part of it, but it almost feels like a group of 5 loser leave town match, elimination game almost. So I don't know if I'm putting too many eggs into that basket, but every week I kind of make my group of 5 playoff games to watch because these teams are jockeying for that top spot. You obviously got to win your conference, but you got to be the highest ranked team. So it does add a lot to games like this, doesn't it, Adam?
Absolutely, and not just for these 2 teams, but for these 2 conferences in the Sun Belt and the American, because at the end of the season, the College Football Playoff Committee is going to look at 5 teams out of these leagues, the 5 conference champions, and they're going to start to try to figure out, well, which team's the best. And it's going to come down to how good is your conference, and the strength of the conference has a lot to do with these inter-conference games like Sun Belt versus American or Sun Belt versus Mountain West. App's going to play a game against Liberty in a couple of weeks, a team that ran the table last year out of Conference USA. And so, yeah, if the champion of the Sun Belt or the champion of the American wants to be the team that goes to the college football playoff, they've got to be in the strongest of those 5 conferences, or they have to have the strongest resume. And notching a non-conference win against another, could it be a team that's another fellow conference champion? I don't know. We'll see what happens at the end of the year. But absolutely, that's why games like these, on top of it being so important, because it's the only game that these 2 teams play against an opponent from the state of North Carolina this year. And so that means a lot on its own. But then when you throw everything you just mentioned related to the playoff into the mix, this is a really important game.
Adam Witten joining us. And Adam, we don't take these games and these Saturdays for granted. And pretty cool start to the season for you. You get a home game, you get a trip to Death Valley, and you get what is probably the most anticipated home game on ECU schedule. So another great college football Saturday environment. You don't get this everywhere. There's a lot of places that don't take their football seriously. So got to be cool for you. Adds a little more energy to the broadcast, I would think.
I'm excited. I've been doing games at App State since 2016, which means I've never done a game at ECU. So, I did the game in Charlotte in 21 and the game last year in Boone. But we haven't been to Greenville since 2012, I believe, and I was not at that game. So this will be I've been to a game at Dowdy Ficklin before, but not for an App State ECU game. So this will be my first trip for one of these. We know how passionate the ECU fan base is. We know what kind of an atmosphere it is there at Dowdy Ficklin. And so this is just going to be the thing that you look at and you're like, this is what college football is supposed to be about, right?
Yeah.
When we went to Kenan Stadium last year and played in Chapel Hill, when ECU does the same thing, or they go to Carter Finley in Raleigh, you look at that and you say, this is an incredible atmosphere because it's two passionate fan bases that are in close proximity to one another and they overlap in a lot of territories. And that's what college football is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be kind of a regional to its core. And so that's why I think both fan bases are so excited for this one. And, we've got one more game to play in this series in 2 years in Greenville, but I hope it's going to continue past that because this game makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no doubt. Adam Witten joining us today on Pirate Radio Live. Adam, enjoy your weekend. Have a great call, and should be a fun one, man. And we'll do it again down the road. But thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and look forward to hopefully seeing you all on Saturday.